Welcome to Women on Men, the podcast where we explore masculinity through the eyes of women. Together, we challenge stereotypes, rethink traditional roles, and discover what it means to be a man today. I'm your host, Rafael Gomez. My guest today is Lucy Wilson, a close friend of mine and my wife's. Lucy has been married to her husband, Richard, for 8 years. She's a multi-talented fitness instructor, writer, singer, and wellness coach with incredible insights to share. Hi, Lucy. Thank you so much for joining me on my inaugural episode. It means a lot to me that you would trust me enough to join.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very honored to be here. It's a pleasure to chat with you.
So you go on a girls trip with my wife every year. And when she gets back, I always get a full download of everything. The relationship conversations have always intrigued me because they open my eyes to how different every husband can be. Has that been a realization for you as well?
Yeah, it's been an interesting, it's good insight to talk to girlfriends that I've known for a long time and hear how their relationships work. And, there's always the element of you're getting it from their perspective. So it's like you're hearing it from the inside, and what are you hearing? What are they not saying? But yeah, getting to hear how different, we all are very different as people. So we show up very differently in our relationships, and then how they're met with their partners or the partners that they chose is all very, it's just fascinating. It's interesting to watch and see.
I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to start a podcast like this, is because I feel like the perception of relationships, perception of men, it varies. And I think people need to hear those opinions because I think right now they're hearing only one side. They're hearing a negative, dark side. And I think there's another side that should be given some light. So with that, I'll ask the first question. What does masculinity mean to you? And when I ask that, I don't mean the stereotypes we hear about, but how do you define it in your worldview?
So I've been thinking a lot about this, and I feel like of the questions, we talked about, this might be the hardest one for me to answer. And I asked my husband this morning before I was getting on the call, I was like, so what does masculinity mean to you? And he goes, I don't give a shit. And I was like,
that's pretty masculine,
okay.
If I'm being honest.
Yeah, exactly. And he goes, I'm just trying to be a good person. And I was like, I really appreciate that. That's really nice to hear. I also think it's interesting because I have a slightly different view on it than I think a lot of people who are in my circumstances might expect. I've spent a lot of time studying different spiritualities, different views, different things. And so what has kind of stuck with me and how I view masculinity has a lot less to do with gender or sexuality, but has more to do with energy. I know we're venturing into woo-woo territory, but to me, this isn't woo at all. It's
sure.
A battery has two ends, and that's the only way it works, is it has a plus and a minus. It has a yin and a yang. There's a lunar and a solar. And so that's what I'm talking about when I say energy. I'm literal energy, the way light bulbs work, is there's a plus and a minus.
Yeah.
And I have found it very helpful to view masculinity as just one end of that pole, one polarization, whereas femininity is the other one. So to blatantly answer your question, masculinity is a sense of direction. It's I'm going to go for this thing. I want this thing. I'm going to go for it. There's a purposefulness. There's a direction, almost assertiveness.
Assertiveness. Okay. So it's more about aligning someone's intentions with their actions in a way, maybe, where it's like, I want this thing, I'm going to go for it. And that comes across as masculine. So when you see, let's say, a woman doing something similar, do you find that as a masculine energy?
I do.
Okay.
And I what has been really helpful for me personally is learning to play with these. So it's if that's the masculine energy, then femininity has a lot to do more with sensing and feeling and perceiving, perception and picking up on things. And when I say this, people get real prickly.
Yeah.
And understandably, based on the culture that we live in, But I'm not saying that like all women only go after their things. It's like
Yeah.
we have both,
Yeah.
and finding the balance between the two can be really helpful. So for me, I find it helpful to, or it's been fun. It's to like play with this like masculine energy when I have a goal, when I have a thing that I'm trying to achieve, that it's like, yeah, I'm going after this thing with passion, with courage, with decisiveness. Um, but if I'm doing that without feeling and without perceiving the people around me, that's, in my opinion, when we get into like the toxic version of this, where it's like, I'm going after this thing regardless of what it has to do with the people around me or regardless of how it affects other people. So it's the balance that brings a healthy aspect to it.
Interesting. I like that. Yeah, because I do think it's, I don't think it's easy to say like only men display assertiveness and only women display awareness, or I'm trying to think of the word you used.
Sensitivity.
Sensitivity, yeah. Because I think, like, for example, you just wrote a book, and that was something you set out with intention. But it's interesting to me that you see that as a masculine energy, to say I set out to make this book, and that is a masculine trait. But I do think we do live in both in a lot of ways. I'm going to be honest. Like, I still don't know how I define masculinity. So I started this podcast, and I don't have like a one all definition. Part of the reason I wanted to, I mean, it's called exploring masculinity, because I want to understand it a bit more and how people see it. And I find myself somewhat sensitive and aware, but I'm also assertive and these things, and that makes me feel like, okay, maybe I'm dipping into both in your worldview.
Yeah.
But I think, well, even your definition doesn't have anything to do with what I think a lot of people associate with masculinity necessarily. I think a lot of people, when you just face value, you do think of the stereotypes. You think of, okay, hunting or, strength, or those kinds of things. And, I think part of the reason I hesitate to just define things like that is because I do see that in more than just men. I see that in women. I see that in anyone. But to your point, you're saying that there's kind of like the battery, and sometimes you're displaying the positive, and sometimes you're displaying the negative.
Yeah. And like, if we're talking about this in the sense of relationships, it's like some people might more naturally rest, or like have a more natural tendency towards what we might call masculine qualities, and some people might have a more comfortable time being in the more feminine qualities. And if you're trying to find a partner, usually it's most compatible if you're finding someone who's the opposite. It's like, even if, like, I have plenty of friends who are very masculine women who like, they identify as women, they are women, but they have very masculine qualities. They're very headstrong, they're very decisive, they're very assertive, and they have found happiness with partners who are more sensitive, who are more passive, who are more feeling. And even though they identify themselves as men, as a masculine man, they have this kind of role reversal that's healthy for them,
Yeah.
because that's who they are, and they're not trying to be some other kind of way.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the thought you put into it. You could tell you definitely thought about this a lot. So thank you very much. So I do want to go into the next segment, because it does deal with myths. It's called Masculinity Myths. This is where I make a statement about masculinity, and you say whether you think it's a true statement in your worldview. So, number one myth: a man's worth is defined by his ability to provide financially.
No,
You
definitely
just don't.
not.
It's just not. It's not a consideration for you. And I know we'll get into your priorities later, because I know that comes up. But that's just outright no.
Yeah.
Masculinity is about physical strength and dominance.
No, no, absolutely not.
Women prefer alpha males over kind or empathetic men.
I mean, I personally don't. And it's like, it's tricky because like all of these I can like, I understand how people might come to these
Sure.
conclusions, but that isn't true for me personally. And it's like, if we're talking about physical strength, I understand like that. Yes, some women might be drawn to that, but without emotional strength, without emotional intelligence, like the protection starts to veer into like, but who do I need protecting from? It's
Right.
this guy who's strong, who can't regulate his emotions.
Right.
So if you can protect me physically from some outside source, but you can't protect me from your own emotions, then that's not helpful for me.
I think you nailed something that I think it's overlooked by a lot of, I think, the manosphere. Men are pride themselves on being a woman's protector, and they pride themselves on their strength and their maybe their combat abilities. But I think at the end of the day, 99.9% of men will never even encounter a fight or encounter an intruder. But most women will encounter a man's emotional irregularity and inability to control their emotions. And most women's violence occur in their own home. So I think it's interesting that men take this role of protector on, even though at the end of the day, they're going to be the ones that are going to be the perpetrators in their own relationship, theoretically and statistically. So they take on this they get to wear this badge and never even have to act on it. Like, oh yeah, well, I'm this big, strong protector. It's like, well, no one's ever broken into your house. So maybe work on your emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. And in my experience, like to be fair, I haven't been around a ton of bar fights. I have not been around a ton of fights. I don't see them that often.
Sure.
But when I've seen things start to move in that direction, I don't often think that a man who is trying to assert dominance over another man, a man who's trying to show his physical strength, feels very strong in that moment. I think he feels weak.
Interesting.
And he's trying to perform strength.
Yeah.
And trying to prove from a like defensive
Yeah.
spot as opposed to a protective, or he's protecting himself.
Right. Yeah. I mean, unless someone's like actively attacking, your wife or your girlfriend, most of the time, and I was young and in Chicago, and, a guy would bump into me at the bar and you would just get all like testy about it. And it isn't about protecting somebody. It's really about protecting your own ego. It's about trying to display some sort of dominance or some sort of strength to strangers to feel good. I mean, most of the time when I do see bar fights, I have seen them. Most of the time, the girlfriend or wife is completely embarrassed, is completely ashamed that it's even happening. And, nobody wins in those scenarios. But for some reason, I don't know if it's movies, I don't know if it's guys just egging each other on, but they feel this sense of like violence and aggression is going to make me appear better in the eyes of people around me. And rarely is that the case.
Yeah.
At least that's what I found.
Yeah, me too.
2 more myths. Men don't need emotional support or therapy.
Absolutely. That's definitely not true in my view. I think like real men rely on other people for help, and aren't afraid to ask for it, and I'll even like go a step further, like real men aren't afraid to deal with their emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I wholeheartedly agree. I think men tend to mostly veer towards one emotion, which is anger. That's the one they feel most comfortable with. It's the one that they feel most comfortable displaying. But that isn't that's not healthy. And I think there's other emotions that you need to explore. And if you're only feeling anger, I think you're ignoring a lot of the rest of the spectrum of emotions. I do want to ask this. So in your definition of masculinity and femininity, your brief description of femininity, you talk about the sensitivity. If men go to therapy, do you view that as a little bit on the feminine side versus the masculine side? Actually, I can almost stop myself there, because I think if somebody determines, hey, I need help, and they assert themselves and go to therapy and get the help, that's assertive in my opinion. But what do you think?
Yeah. I think it's like feeling like being in touch with your emotions, feeling your emotions. It's like, yeah, I can call that like dipping into feminine energy, but being able to like hold them and being able to act from them in a healthy way and make decisions based on what you're feeling, like that's using a healthy, in my perspective, a healthy masculine energy. It's like not being so overwhelmed by the emotion because you've worked with it, you've worked through it, you've dealt with it, you've asked for, gone to the resources that you have, and being able to do something with that emotion, like that's a healthy masculine to me.
I totally agree. The last myth, being vulnerable makes a man less attractive to women.
No, but I feel like when I saw that, I was like, okay, this is something I actually want to dig into a little bit.
Okay.
Because vulnerability requires a lot of strength. So it's like flat out, the answer is no.
Yeah.
But I think where this, like the seed of it, like this is like a, like a fifth generation thought. This is like down the road, but where it starts is like, I don't want to be your mom.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to take care of your emotions. I can be there for you and support you and show up for you and help you. But I think often vulnerability, at least in some of the men that I talk to, like vulnerability gets mistaken for letting somebody else do all the work for me.
Okay.
It's like falling, like not being able to help yourself at all. It's like I'm too, I don't know. Like, I don't know. There's a tricky piece to this where it's like, if my partner comes to me because something terrible has happened and he's having this emotion and he's coming to me crying, like that, I want to be there for that. Like,
Right.
I want to hold that space for him and support him as a partner. It's when, and like, we all do this. It's normal. It's human. But it's like when something comes up and there's almost like a regression, it's like you can see that this person becomes like childlike.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel this instinct to like, now I'm mom, like now I have to handle things.
Yeah.
That is when it's like, ugh, I don't like this.
Yeah.
Which I think it comes from, or like is contributed to by not handling your emotions, by like not dealing with your stuff, by not going to therapy, by not building your emotional strength.
Yeah.
And your emotional fortitude. Then it becomes the job of your, we're assuming in this conversation, it becomes the job of your female partner.
Yeah.
And it's like, that sucks for her.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to deal with your shit.
Yeah, I think, your wife is not your therapist. She definitely, I think there is a distinction, and I think it's important that we do talk about this because a lot of men online, when I read comments, because I'm obviously in the shit basically. I'm reading what these guys are saying, what they're feeling, and a lot of guys have this thing where they're like, every time I've been vulnerable with a woman, she throws it back in my face, and I haven't necessarily experienced that. I'm not gonna like say these men, I don't know what kind of men or women they're dating. I mean, I think a lot goes into the emotional maturity of your partner, regardless of the gender. But a lot of men don't feel comfortable being vulnerable. So I think you highlighting a distinction of, okay, if my husband is crying, he's going through something, I want to be there for him and comfort him. But the other side of that is if they're not handling it in any way on their own and they're only relying on you, then that becomes mothering. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I get that. So there is a distinction. So if your husband comes to you with a problem, maybe he wants to consult with you, that's okay maybe. But if he doesn't do anything about it on his own, then that's when you start to feel a bit like I don't really enjoy this as much. Is that kind of the
Yeah. It's such a tricky thing, and it's a fine line, and it's like, we all do it. That's part of being like by being human, is like we have our things and we have I'll even say traumas. That's like when we get triggered by something or something happens, it's like we can all of a sudden be our 9-year-old selves or 13-year-old selves or whatever again. And it's like, even when that happens, even if you don't catch it in the moment, it's the like coming back. Like, that's the strength that I want, is coming back after and saying like, I don't know that we handled that, or I didn't handle that my best. It's like coming back with some awareness and some emotional maturity, and having that strength and like that assertiveness is that's strength to me. That's a healthy, like I'm going to even say balance, like not just masculine, not just feminine, but just like an ownership of your emotions, your humanity.
An ownership. Okay. An ownership of it instead of a complete reliance on your partner.
And a victimhood. It's like the world isn't out to get me. This happened and that sucks and I want to deal with it and I want to feel with it and I'm going to ask for your help when I need it, but I'm not expecting you to take care of everything. I'm not expecting you to deal with my shit for me. I just realized, can I cuss? I've been cussing.
Yeah, I'm gonna cuss. Let's just cuss. Okay. Who cares? No, I really appreciate your honesty on that. I think vulnerability is something that I think is nuanced, and understanding it more, I think is not only going to help me, I think it's going to help other men out there, hopefully, because I think it's important to be vulnerable. Like you said, it is a strength to be vulnerable. But I think if you're only reliant on your partner and you're not managing on your own, then that strength kind of disappears. Awesome. So that goes to our next segment, which you've already answered these questions, but just so I can give the listener a bit of insight, this segment is called Partner Priorities. This is where we explore how values and relationships evolve over time. So how it works is from the traits below, which are looks, confidence, personality, humor, intelligence, kindness, ambition, emotional stability, financial stability, and reliability. From those traits, you selected your top 3 and bottom 3 based on what mattered in the beginning of a relationship, and then you did the same thing 5 years into the relationship. And I thought your answers were quite interesting. So initially, when you first meet a partner or maybe even your husband, your top 3 traits that mattered to you were personality, emotional intelligence, and confidence. Talk to me about those 3 traits.
Yeah, this was actually a really hard exercise. It was really fascinating to kind of like sit with for a little while. I almost put looks as one of them because I'm like, that would be dishonest to say that like looks don't play any factor in when we meet somebody.
Yeah.
But I realized that confidence to me outweighs looks every single time. Like if I meet somebody and I don't instantly find them like conventionally attractive according to my taste, but if they're very confident and very like assertive and forward and expressing interest, it's like that is much more attractive to me than someone who might be like conventionally attractive or like even if they're like very much my type. And no matter how attractive somebody is or how much money they make or how successful they are, or whatever, it's like if they're not nice, if they're not aware of how I'm feeling in the situation, like if they don't have any emotional intelligence to be able to interact with me, it's like that there's no point. There's like it's game over.
That makes a lot of sense.
Personality to me, I was like, that feels like it encompasses so much. There were so many other things that I wanted to put in that top 3. And I was like, I'll just put personality because that feels like it's like lovely, ambiguous. Yeah. It's like a lovely, ambiguous term because it's like, we got to get along. Yeah. Like I want to enjoy conversing with you. I want to enjoy hanging out with you. And that's all personality to me.
Yeah, personality is a little cheaty because it kind of does, humor, all that kind of boils into personality. But I also think personality is a bit of this je ne sais quoi a little bit, where it's like it's this mix of how they're banter, how they view the world, all that stuff. So I think it's important to highlight. But you said something very interesting that I think looks, like you said, you might initially see someone say, oh, that's an attractive person. But if they don't have confidence, it doesn't matter. Or if they don't have the assertiveness or the person, it doesn't even matter. They can look a certain way, but that's not going to necessarily attract you fully to them. So, I think that's an interesting distinction. And for your bottom 3, you put ambition, humor, and financial stability. Talk to me about those 3.
So ambition, it's
it's like nuanced. It's like I really appreciate, it's important to me that
the partner I'm with has like a passion or like a purpose, but I don't need them to want to be the number one. Like, I don't need them to want to be above everybody else. And in fact, that's like a turn off to me. If I feel like ambition is it's a tricky goblin. It's like a little monster that can like spoil things. And it's like, I don't need to be your number one priority. I'd rather not be like your absolute number one priority. But when I meet somebody who's like super ambitious, like going to the top, it's like, I'll support you, but like, are you just gonna leave me in the dust? Like, are you just gonna not care at all what happens to me in this process? Like, kudos to you, go do your thing, but like, I don't need to be along for that ride because I don't trust that you're gonna like even remember that I exist at some point. Humor, I mean, I feel like I was able to put that because it's like, I don't need you to have like the greatest sense of humor. I need you to like, I want you to be able to laugh. I want to laugh with you.
Sure.
But I've dated people where humor was so important that it was like they were making jokes when I was trying to have a serious conversation. You know, it's like when humor became a priority, like everything was a joke and everything was supposed to be funny. I was like, this, but like I want to actually connect with you, and it became a deflection.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of like, that's more for my personal experience dating people who prioritized comedy or humor over connection. And what was the third thing I said? I don't even remember. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like, obviously there's a certain degree at some point that becomes an important thing. But
maybe initially
it's at that point.
It's not initially, like a concern. You're like, I'm not. I don't need you to be my financial X or Y. At this point.
Yeah. Especially at the beginning, it's like, I've got me. Like, I can take care of myself, and let's just like see what happens here.
Yeah.
There are other things that I prioritize more, for sure.
Awesome.
1 second, I'm gonna spray on some like a throat spray. After flying yesterday, my throat's been dry.
Yeah, you don't need. I mean, I'm still a little raspy. I've been wanting to cough for like half an hour, so I totally understand. So 5 years later, so this is you're 5 years into a relationship. Your top three have shifted just a little bit: personality, emotional intelligence, and reliability. Now, maybe I'm crazy, but personality and emotional intelligence were initial as well, right? So those stayed exactly, but reliability moved up as your number three. Can you talk to me about that?
I mean, it's like, as I get to know somebody and as we're starting to connect, that becomes super important. It's like, can you show up when you say you're going to show up? Can you be there for me if you say you're going to be there for me? Can you tell me that you can't be there if you can't be there? Like, can you be honest about what you're capable of, and what's important to you? So it's like, even if you're, the most attractive person, but you're flaky, or you're not showing up, or you're not even in the kind of like outer realm, it's like, if you're not doing outside of the relationship what you say you're going to do, which I feel like, it's like we're talking a lot about, or can talk a lot about, like, ambition, financial stability, all those things. Reliability, it's like that piece is more important to me than like, I'm going to make $1 million by the time I'm, like, that's great. Good for you. If that's what you want, great. But if you're like, I'm going to be a billionaire by the time I'm 40, and you're not doing anything that you say you're going to do to achieve that, like, that's a bigger problem for me than if you're like, I want to volunteer, and I'm going to go volunteer, and you actually do. It's like, that speaks more to me about your character and how you're going to show up for the people around you, including me, than big dreams and nothing to back it up.
That makes a lot of sense. Bottom three, humor has stayed there, looks and intelligence. So, I mean, I think looks make sense. I think as time goes on, looks matter less maybe in a relationship. You start to really just love the person. But intelligence, talk to me about that one.
Yeah, this one was tricky because it's like financial stability becomes more important the more I'm with a person. It's
Sure.
like, I don't need you to take care of me, but I don't want to take care of you. So it's like finding I don't know, finding that balance
Hmm.
is more important to me after the initial stages.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like I have a very specific reason for putting the intelligence. It's like I don't know. I
Like
don't know.
maybe.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure what it is. It's like I don't need you to I don't need you to have the highest IQ. Like obviously to a certain extent, like I want to be able to have an intelligent conversation
Sure.
with you. Um, but I'd rather you be curious than a know-it-all. Like I'd rather you be interested, um, and willing to have the conversation. It's
Yeah.
like it's almost like I tend to be a know-it-all. Like I tend to be like, well, actually, and I know how annoying that is, and so I don't need both of us to be doing that to each other.
That's so funny. Well, I think you put emotional intelligence as number two in your priorities. So I think that matters to you more than how much someone knows. It's like how well do you know yourself? How well do you know my emotions? And I think that matters to you more than how much someone knows and being a know-it-all. So that makes sense to me. Um, awesome. Well, a big reason why I do this is because I think a lot of people, especially again in the manosphere, I'm going to keep commenting on that. I think they're going to be surprised by what a lot of people say in this exercise, because a lot of people are going to be surprised that financial stability is not in your top three either time, initially or after. And I don't think, I mean, I think you're a unique person. I think you're pretty, I don't think you're like a lot of people, but I do think there are a lot of women that think like you as well. So I think it's so interesting that, and knowing your husband and knowing your relationship, I mean, all this makes sense to me. So, again, thank you for sharing this, because I'm hoping people out there will start to see, oh, maybe I'm focusing on the wrong things. Maybe I'm only focusing on my looks, or I'm only focusing on my financial stability. I'm not focusing on these other things, which matter to people initially and deeper into the relationship, because it does change. Your priorities change as the relationship progresses. Um, looks matters so much to a lot of guys in the beginning, but it's like 20, if you're planning to be married 20 years with somebody, that's not going to be something that's going to be an end all be all. There's other things that are going to make you want to stay in the relationship.
Yeah, it's interesting because you know, there's a stand up. I remember seeing a stand up, and it was a woman. She was talking about, guys. She's like, it's not that hard. Just be interested in anything. Like, just have a passion. It can be it can be the nerdiest, weirdest, offbeat, fringe thing. And some woman is going to want to hear all about it. It's like, yeah, it's not going to be for everybody, but like, it doesn't really matter to me. Like, it doesn't matter to women as a whole that you are passionate and ambitious about finances or about working out or about crypto or whatever it is. It's like you can be like so passionate about whatever it is. It's that passion that we're drawn to. It's the like drivenness that we're like, cool, you have a direction you want to go in. Amazing. Let me follow you. I'm interested. Let me hear about it. Talk to me about your passion. It's like we want to see you lit up. We want to see you excited about things. And I can understand, I can empathize with this, like there's a listlessness that can come. And I feel like in the circles that you're referencing, it comes like it's like, well, if we're not providing for them, what are we supposed to do? It's like, if I can't find a woman that wants me to take care of her, I have no purpose. It's like, no, you have a purpose. Just channel it into something else. And the right woman's going to come along and be like, thank you. I'm in.
I wholeheartedly agree. And it actually, I think, leads into the final segment of the podcast. And this is called Dear Men. And this is a chance for you to give your honest advice to men. For example, what is something you wish men knew about attraction and relationships that they often get wrong? That's just like prompt, but feel free to give any advice that you have for men out there who are either trying to find a partner or trying to make sure that their current relationship stays healthy and happy.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'll just feeding off of what I was just saying. It's like, you're not going to be for everybody, and you wouldn't want to be. Like, that's boring. If everybody's into you, that's not helpful for you. And that's not helpful for your potential partner either. It's like, it's so cliche and it's so hard and it's such a tough thing to actually internalize. But it's like, if you are you and you are actively trying to be the best version of yourself, I feel like that's a big piece of it. It's like, we're talking about going to therapy, or we're talking about even like going to the gym, like the things that's like, I don't need you to be buff. Like, for me, working out is about health. It's like, if I'm going to be with you, I want you to be alive for as long as possible. So it's like, take care of yourself emotionally, physically, whatever that means.
I want to point out that this is coming from a fitness instructor, so men pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, sure, muscles are great, whatever, that's fine. But like, I'd rather you be taking care of yourself for longevity. And if you are trying to be your best version of yourself, not some best version of some other person, that's, to me, how you find your person, or how your person finds you, or how your people, if you want to be with multiple, whatever, if you want to date around, you don't want to commit, that's cool. But like, you'll end up being more successful if you're attracting somebody to who you inherently are. Otherwise, you're going to attract some people, and then, 3, 6, 12 months in, it's like, oh, I didn't realize, I didn't know that's who you were. I didn't know, it's like, I'm just now meeting the real you. And that's different than who you were when we met. And I feel like there's a myth that like women are only attracted to looks. I have an inside scoop. So I have a friend who's a matchmaker.
Ooh.
And he told me that he has often been successful if he pairs a like quote unquote more attractive man, or sorry, if he pairs a less attractive man with a more attractive woman, that can be successful. But if he tries to pair a like more conventionally attractive man with a less conventionally attractive woman, it never works.
I believe that.
So it's, not to like poke too much, but who's prioritizing looks?
Yeah.
More.
It's definitely men. It's definitely men. There's no question about it. Like, I think a lot of men, if you ask them, I would have to come up with a whole new rubric for my partner priorities for men, because I would have to think of traits beyond looks. And like, it might just be like body parts. Like, guys are just like, well, I like this part and this part and this part. And I think that is, I think that's the issue, is a lot of men, it's hard for them to see beyond looks. And I think a lot of the men in the manosphere who are angry, all the incels and all those people, they're mad because they're not getting the Instagram models. And that's what frustrates them. And it's like, you might not even like them. You might not even like who they are. You're just attracted to the looks, and that you can't see beyond that, and it frustrates you. So it's definitely men prioritizing looks over women. There's no question about that.
And it's interesting. It's like, if we're talking about like how to get hot women, like if you're talking about how to get model, 10 level women, it's confidence.
Right.
Like it's having that confidence in yourself, knowing who you are, going after what you want in a way that's not like, I'll screw over anybody to get what I want, but it's like, no, I know who I am, and I know I'll work to get what I want. Yeah. I'll work hard to go after this thing that's important to me, and I'll take my losses and I'll learn from them. Like, I'll take the criticism. It's like, if we're talking about like biohacking, it's like biohack your way into improving yourself from the inside. And that's what women will be attracted to. Is it's like, yeah, if you're going to work out, but also work out your emotionally and mentally and build up your confidence. Put yourself out there in front of people. Like, practice talking to women and handling rejection.
Yeah.
Like, practice going up to women, asking for their number, or even just saying like, hey, you're beautiful. And when she says, oh, thank you so much, but I have a boyfriend, just like, well, that's a lucky man.
Boom.
Done.
Damn, Lucy,
As
what
opposed
a bar.
to as opposed to like, what's literally happened to me is like, oh, thank you so much, but I'm married. And it's like, well, sorry, I'm not good enough for you. Right. It's like, well, now my day's ruined, and you're an asshole.
Yeah, and you just come
as opposed
as a
to
dick.
just as opposed to a pleasant exchange. So, and if there's a pleasant exchange, like, I'm married, but like, if I have a girlfriend who's single, it's like, this guy was actually really cool, I could introduce you. Or, it's like, then it can grow from there. There's room, as opposed to just like a hard shutdown. Yeah, I feel like that kind of went tangent, but
no, that was great. I think that's great advice. I think you nailed it. I mean, you're my first guest, but I agree with so much of what you said that I wonder how this is going to go in the future. But you just, to me, you just nailed so much of it. And, I wholeheartedly agree. I think men, they don't deal with rejection well. They think they're owed and deserve any woman they want to talk to. They're upset if a woman has a partner, and it's like, people partner up. Like, you're not everybody in the world is single. Not everyone in the world is looking. Not everyone is available for a relationship. But you do need to go out there. You need to ask, and you need to take it on the chin and say, okay, well, that didn't work, but I'm not going to be upset about it. There's other girls to ask out. And I do think confidence is 99.9% of it. I think if you come up to somebody and you're like assured of who you are as a person, people read that. People pick up on that, and they say, you know what, there's something interesting about this person. I've never come across somebody like this. Even if they're shorter, or they're, maybe some of the features, that think are traditionally unattractive, men like that still partner up. Like, it's still, a lot of people still get married in this world, and a lot of it has to do with confidence, and a lot of it has to do with you just being assured of who you are. So I think that's very strong advice. And I think we're done. So thank you so much, Lucy. I think you shared some really valuable insight. I'm sure if this ever gets heard by somebody, there's a guy out there that's going to say, you know what, Lucy was right. I'm going to try to take some of that advice.
I have like one more thing that I want to share, which is, I said this to a guy friend recently, and he was like, oh, damn. Especially if you're like approaching women, or if you're dealing with, like, if you're single and you're looking to date somebody. I've read this quote somewhere. I wish I could attribute it to who said it. I do not know. It's just that men are afraid that women are going to humiliate them, and women are afraid that men are going to kill them.
Right.
So just the power disparity in and of itself is like, I know how hard it is to go up to somebody and put yourself out there. Like, that is so frightening, especially when you're going up to somebody you've never met before and you know nothing about them. Like, I understand and I empathize. But if you can empathize and understand where we're coming from and how we're perceiving you, like, if you want us to feel safe with you, you have to be someone that is safe. Like, if you want us to trust you, you have to be trustworthy. And just be patient with us while we're patient with you, because we feel threatened.
Yeah. I mean, you're a total stranger coming up to a woman, and you're, they don't know you, they need to, and having that empathy is important. I think it comes across too when you're like, hey, I know this is an awkward position for you, but I'm interested. And if that's something that, you come across with that emotional intelligence, in fact, I think, to understand what this person is experiencing, maybe they're with their friends, they don't want to be bothered, etc. Like, there's things that you need to consider, I think, when you are approaching women. And one of them is they don't know you, and they could be a little scared. Like, they don't, it's hard out there. And there's a lot of mean, creepy guys too. So that makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate you sharing that additional tidbit. Lucy, thank you again. I can't thank you enough for this. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Truly my pleasure. I could really chat all day about this stuff. So thank you for having me. And yeah,
Well, if I keep this going, I'll probably invite you back. So thank you again.
perfect. Sounds good.